Yeah, actually we started as a university research group in the University of Oulu, and we spent 10 years researching experimental games and games for utilitarian purposes, basically serious games, and eventually the university ran out of money and we had to find our other ways to make a living, and then we started up the company, and that's one of the main reasons why we are still developing serious games, because of the background. At the moment it's kind of like 50-50, that 50% of the time allocation is spent for serious games projects, but we still want to keep the purely entertainment part, because that's kind of the core of our R&D. If you don't know how to make cool, engaging games, we don't know how to make cool, engaging, serious games, so it keeps the sanity levels up. I think mainly the ideas come from customers, because we mainly do customer projects, contracted work, so usually the customers approach us with their problems and we invent solutions, and because we are game developers, usually the solutions involve some sort of game or gamified applications and systems to help make their money or help them save the world, or whatever the core reason is. So that's the main form. And for our own serious games projects, usually it comes from some practical situation or thing that we believe that this is worthwhile pursuing further, and then we try to invent interesting ways to solve the problem. For us it's definitely from the outside, because that's kind of like I see it, it's more interesting to solve real world problems than to invent our own problems. So that's kind of keeps the target in mind, and it's in a way very beneficial to have real clients with real problems for us to solve. So for us it comes mainly from the customers, but in general I'm not really sure that what is the most common way to go forward. I think if we had kind of like millions in our bank account, I think it would be very nice to spend the time inventing new products and actually sell our own IP, but mainly our funding base is customer related money, so when we serve them we get money, and all the profits we usually circulate back to our own development, so that we spend either developing serious games or just entertainment games. The most challenging fields might be interesting, where the problems are really difficult to solve, where the impact value might be high enough, and usually for us the new domains, that if we venture into a totally new domain that we have absolutely no knowledge or skills beforehand, those are very interesting, because then the team has a chance to learn some new things, and they also need to kind of push themselves across the barriers in order to be able to develop something. And although we don't have expertise in all of the fields, we are eager to learn more, and for the past 10 years has been constant learning experience, so every week is a bit of a challenge. Yeah, I think our talent base within the company, we are only 20 people, so rather small development studio, but all of the people have degrees from higher educational backgrounds. So we have mathematicians, physicists, engineers, language people, communication people, even legal staff, architect. So we have a wide variety of domains in-house, But usually when we do a customer project, the domain expertise come from the customers. So we don't even pretend to be the experts in certain domains. So if we do a serious game for oil refinery business, of course we need to make sure that the customers are able to provide the team of experts already since the design phase of the project, so that they are involved throughout the process and they kind of stamp the outcome, that they agree that this follows the guidelines and it's authentic enough for the educational purposes or whatever the serious game target is. So usually like that, and I can't recall any case that we actually have kind of acquired the domain knowledge or expertise outside. So usually it's the customer who takes care of the domain expertise in these cases. And then if we do our own projects, then we usually do cooperation with partners that have that kind of knowledge base. I think mainly yes, because usually if the problem is within their domain, they understand that we as a game developers may not be in that area deep enough, so they understand that, and usually in our cases they have been very eager to allocate resources in terms of experts participating in the projects, and usually they are very excited about it because they also get sneak peek of game development process and they kind of can imagine that, yeah, this is game development, this is cool, so they are very enthusiastic about it. Sometimes it's a nuisance, but most of the times it's pretty good fun. I think the first serious game, which was our own IP, so our own product, we got some Dekes funding for that, especially in the early stages of mainly in the R&D phase, and that was very helpful. And then also AVEC has been a good source for especially creating the demos or the initial concepts. I think the main challenge is that it's so immature field at the moment. There are loads of companies developing serious games, but it's very heterogeneous, very versatile. So in that sense, there's not yet kind of the platform or framework or anything that might make it more easy and appealing for the investors, for example. So maybe certain serious game project may get funding from investors if the domain is lucrative, if it's scalable to the global markets, but it's very kind of hit and miss kind of thing, and in that sense the entertainment game business is much more kind of stable in that sense. Making money is hit and miss in that sector as well, but that might be one of the reasons that people don't yet really know that you can make games that are useful also in other areas than just having fun. We have had some experience of EU funded projects as well, but all of these funding sources except AVEC, they are pretty bureaucratic, and sometimes there's a kind of urge to stay away from that money because it kind of rottens your soul. It makes you focus on totally different things than actually making a great product. So those are, the money is good, but it's difficult. And then of course for the customer projects, the customer usually pays the bills, so it kind of funds the whole project, and those are much more straightforward. And maybe that's one of the reasons why we focus so intensively on customer projects instead of our own projects. We don't have any private money, so we haven't tried that one, because that seems to be quite common case in entertainment games, that there's investors jumping into board and providing some resources to actually make the game. And also we don't have any publisher funded projects either. So if we have made our own entertainment games, we've funded those with our own money that we acquired from the customer projects. I believe so, at least at the moment, but things are changing. They have been changing for the past 20 years. The change is very slow, but it's going on, and if I think situation today, it's much more easy and helpful for the company developer than it was like 5 years ago or 10 years ago. So in that sense, it's kind of the overall general attitude is slowly shifting towards the idea that games are actually very powerful medium. You could use them to do good things, and so hopefully the next 5-10 years will totally change that into much more stable. Yeah, of course, we game developers, we could do more in terms of approaching the prospective investors to explain the things, to kind of provide the arguments and even research background that you can make an impact, you can actually make money if you do things well enough and if you do good quality products. That might be one thing, which is basically on us. But then also I think the more there will be cases where some parties invest in these kind of projects and get actually revenue for their investment, then it kind of spreads around and it keeps the balls rolling. So I don't know which is the obvious choice, but and maybe kind of the public funded organizations and projects are still doing good work in that sense, that kind of educating the people and educating the markets and especially educating the investors that this is as viable option to invest money than anything else, because serious games as solutions, they are not that much different than any software solution for any other area. That there's of course the game component, but for the money point of view, it's project work like anything else. More and more, like we get constantly approached by corporations. Usually they have early idea that they've read somewhere or they've heard somebody give a talk, or they have some partners who have experimented and they have the idea that hey, games might be good for this, or some of the customers just think that games are cool, we want to join in. So it's spreading quite fast, but still I think there are, especially in the, let's say, more conservative industries, there's loads of this kind of attitude that games are for children, it's not really serious work. For example, our own IP Ludocraft, which is team building, team training game. Of course, the overall target group is all people that do intensive teamwork as their profession. So, but in there we try to target first the plain industry, the expert work like software industry and stuff like that. But we very fastly went into the healthcare sector, like hospital work, and then also tried retail shops, because we realized that the sales teams, for example, it's a teamwork like any other work, and also tried some military and tried some finance world. So basically we ended up having very kind of heterogeneous target groups. So the only common thing is that people doing expertise work, basically the kind of the brain work, and doing them as teams. So very large target group. But then for the customer projects, if it's contracted work, they usually have very clear picture that who will be the end users and then it's much more easy to design the game because we can get very detailed profiles of the end users, and we know what kind of backgrounds they may have and what kind of knowledge base they already have. So that's make the design process much more straightforward. Yeah, we've done customer projects, like starting from the kindergarten age, like language learning games or speech therapy games or early math skill games. We did even one game for the Helsinki city about dental hygiene for primary school kids. In a sense that when developing games for kids, their imagination is still much more vivid. They usually accept a lot weirder things than the adults might. But then of course the challenge is to find enough end users to actually test the game during the development process. So usually we collaborate with the local schools and with the local school teachers, so they can usually take their classroom full of kids to try out the games and stuff like that. And of course, like, we don't have any kids working in our company. That may be illegal, so that's also a challenge, how to adapt your mindset to a mindset of 5-year-old, for example. So it brings some interesting challenges. I think I don't know if that's clear enough target group, but at the moment, because I feel that the society is still living in the Middle Ages, so I would be interested to target a serious game that would be like change of attitude, change of behavior game, and target that to all government organizations which are still working like they have been working for the past 50 years, because in order to change the world we need to change the people, and that might be interesting. And not to do any boring serious game, but do something that will blow their minds. That would be cool. Yeah, naturally. Finland is quite small market for entertainment games and for serious games, and we already have customers outside Finland, but we don't have any sales or marketing offices outside Finland, so we are based here. So the main obstacle in going global is usually the lack of money. So if we do a serious game and we want to really market it globally, I think 1 or 2 million euros is not even adequate amount of resources to actually get the thing rolling. So that's a big showstopper for our own IP development, because usually even if we have the idea, decent prototype, good early test results for the impact, we usually scrap the projects because we don't know that or we know that we don't have enough resources to actually go global with the game. So that's kind of the. It would be easier to make games if you had enough money. Most of our customers are from Finland, but we have been like from the finance sector we have had the Swiss banks, and for the R&D sector we've been working with Boeing, the airplane company in the States, and also we've had customers that are global corporations, but they usually have offices in Finland, so we usually interact directly with the Finnish counterpart. We make a game, put it on our website and wish that somebody goes there. At least to my knowledge, there are not real channels for distribution of serious games, so there's no Steam of serious games or even the App Store or Play Store. They are mainly for all sorts of projects, so that's still something which is pending, and I know that there are people working in that area, so hopefully that also will change in the future, because that might make the life of a developer much more easy, because there's a channel, and also that would create more lucrative investment opportunities, because then the investors might hear about the thing and they might be able to get real data about the customer base or the size of the markets or anything, because now basically all the serious game market studies they've done by some consulting firm, and you never know where the numbers are actually based on, because you don't get any real figures, you just get some estimates. So there's not decent channels, at least. For the customer projects, usually the customer pays the bills, and in most of the cases they get the IP, so not really revenue based on their sales, but of course we get paid for the development work. So that's the most common case. Usually we need to possibly lower the price of the development part and then get some upside for the prospective sales, that we have some share of the future revenues. So that's been a case, and it's usually kind of the sales negotiation thing, that, and very heavily dependent on the customer, because many of the customers who contract us to make a serious game, the game will be for their internal use. So of course then there's no revenue gained after the development project ends. But then if we've done games that the customer wants to sell and market as their own product, then it might be a really viable solution to have that, because it's the only way to actually have the great success in getting more money that you spend for the work costs. And of course for our own projects it's usually 100% for us, unless we have a partnership with sales partners or marketing partners or some other parties who will be in the process of getting the product to the customer. I can't think of any. I think of course the target is to get more of those projects where there's some revenue share option involved, and possibly with the percentage that's kind of promising, not just like 0.01% of the sales. So that's something, but it's not really kind of new or innovative model. So I haven't really thought about that. I think our main marketing method still is to do kind of expertise and knowledge-based sharing, that we go out and speak in seminars, conferences, exhibitions, in certain corporate organized events. So we spread the word, and usually then we try to deliver the key point that game is a powerful medium and you could benefit in using some gamified solutions, and then we usually showcase some of the examples we've done and showcase some references. So I think that's still our main kind of marketing method. But then of course utilizing the social media and other channels as much as possible has been a good option as well. But we very rarely experimented with like purposefully designed marketing efforts that especially go outside Finland. So like we've tried some ELY-keskus funding and those FinPro participation and those export rings or channels, how do you call them, that will create product portfolios of several companies and then they push it forward. And actually we are now hopefully participating, if the project gets funded, for United Nations project that especially targets the development countries, and focused on learning solutions, and of course learning games is part of that. So usually we try those if we find that we have something to offer and there's some kind of financial possibility to take part, but not many successes in that front for the past 10 years. So I'm growing more and more skeptical. So maybe there's some innovation potential in that area as well, that maybe we also need to find new ways to market our knowledge and expertise. But still, most of the customer projects that land to us, they come in a way that the prospective customer contacts us and asks whether we could solve their problem, and then we solve it. So so we are mainly reactive in our sales purposes, and we have only occasional projects where we proactively have pushed our idea to the customer, and then that's actually landed as a project. So which is very uncontrollable thing as a sales point of view, but it's been keeping us going for the past 10 years, so it's not the worst possible scenario.